back to our picture here. So we are going to go to the lens correction first because we want to make sure that we have that. For me, I have a wide angle lens, and that you want to go to the make and get the right make first. So get down to the Rokinon, which is what we were on. Part of what we're seeing here is a lot of dark space. Maybe I had her settings a little too dark. Maybe I'm not sure, um, but we can go. We need 2 more seconds here.
You want the other lights off too?
Oh no, the other lights should be fine. It might help you guys actually. Sorry.
Leave the door open so people can take notes.
Okay, that should be good like that. Perfect. Perfect. All right. So thank you so much. So I will start off by going down on the highlights, like I said, just seeing if it needs to go too far down, too far up. Then the next part, I bring up the shadows just a hair. It's pretty basic on both. I know that the NEF file processing should be very similar to both processing. And as I continue to go up with the shadows, you see that back airplane continue to come up in lighting. And to me, it's really important to try to even this lighting out. And so how I'll do that is later on here. I go for the clarity up, and that right there punched up my light also. And the clarity, to be honest with you, you can really punch it up if you want, and the stars start to come up, or you can do that again later. Add a filter to it. The vibrance, I like that yellow, so I punch it up immediately. Part of my photography that I do, and I'm famous for, I guess you could say, is my color, and I love that vibrance tool. So it's up to you how you want to use it. I want to go ahead and see what the exposure tool will do for me if I bring it up. You see the corners of my image down here on the left. I don't know if you could tell how noisy it's getting, and that's the lens weakness. And I'm at an additive exposure too, plus 40. And then let's look at this back also. If I take the lens vignette on the lens correction and bring it down, it actually darkens the outsides for me, but it allows that white noise to kind of dissipate a little bit, and it's not as strong. Going back to the original white balance, and I'm going to check to see if I can maybe have it a little more blue. That makes my sky look a little blue. How does that look? Real blue to you guys too, right? Okay. For me, I might say I don't want it to be so blue that if I add any more vibrance to it, it's going to look fake. So I'm going to probably leave it right at 4,000 as shot. And here we are. And then we're going to go ahead and hit open image. Dun, dun, dun. Okay. I use the filters from Google. You can see here they're free. It's let me see here. Skip down. Sorry, the screen that I'm on right now is probably not working so well with my mouse. It's the Color Effects Pro, but the filter name is Nick Collection, and I use the Color Effects Pro pretty often for my processing on after, and I'll kind of show you guys a little bit there. So first of all,
Stop you for just one
yeah.
second. We had an earlier conversation about Nick not working with the current Photoshop, but they apparently are.
What they've announced is they are no longer going to update it.
That's why it stalls on me.
At some point, it's going to
stop
not
working.
Function very well.
Yeah.
So you
be ready
to keep an old OS to use Nick.
Yeah.
Or it's very sad that Google bought them out and promised that the jobs would let it die.
Let it die out. Unfortunately.
So what if you're using a PC? That stuff's all going to show up in
Should be
program.
Same thing.
Yeah, should be all the same program. Yep. On the PC, I use a PC at work, and the same. Everything should look the same. Over here in the adjustments, I actually go and use the essentials for the view. If you guys want to start out with Photoshop Essentials for the view panels for your tools, you've got your brightness, you got your levels, but I always love looking at the curves immediately because it allows me to see the RGB, the red, green, blue, and how dense it is to one side as opposed to the other. Part of that is me being able to fix that, and I'll start out by fixing the sky first, is I'll bring this up So I'm taking away all that color. And I'm worrying about the sky right now, everybody. Don't worry about the foreground yet. And then I'm going to come over here to the little hand tool. I'm going to click it and come over to my subject spot, which is the sky. I'm going to click and bring that light down just a hair here. And I'm starting to light kind of where we're at here for the lighting. Okay? And so the problem is we don't want to affect this area down here. But if you look at your palette, you have a white fill. So if you go up here and you hit edit and you hit fill, you can choose to fill it the opposite color, which, let's try that and see what happens. It goes away. So all of the adjustments I did are gone. And so in order for me to get those adjustments back, I use my brush tool, which is right over here, or the letter B. And I have to be in the white color, which is the opposite of now what is filled with black. And I will touch up only the area by brushing in the areas that I want to touch up. So this is called brushing in tool. I don't know exactly the name, but the brush tool, this is my favorite. And this is where I only enhance that area. I also want to double check that into the foreground down here, I didn't overdo the, how to get larger and smaller are the little brackets, the square brackets, left and right. You can bring your brush tool down. You can bring all your stamp tool as well. You can use. So I don't want white, I want black, so that means that I don't want the brightness on this. So I switch back to black over here, or white. Black is what I want. And I can see there was a little bit of extra brightness up there in the wing. And then make sure that this didn't get a little extra brightness again as well. The last part is on the brush tool, make sure that your flow is like, around 50%. You don't want it too hard. And then you can use the different brushes, but you see I use more of a softer, rounded one. You can always use the sharp line, but be careful because those lines show up every time you make an edit when you use it that way. So try to be soft with your edits so that they're not so obvious, So that sky there, let me go Control 0. That sky there, I feel like we can see the difference is pretty nice. It's a little dark in here, so let's brush that in with white down here a little bit. A little smaller tool. And some will say, how can I refine this area? In Photoshop, if you were to go over to our mask and right click, you can select and mask. And so now we are in this mask tool where we can choose to add or subtract, very similar to it, and or we can do, this is the Smart Refine Tool brush. I find that the Refine Tool brush is not as good as it was in the previous software versions. I liked it before. It was smarter. This one tries to do it for me, but when I click minus, like I don't want to have any of this hillside here, as I click minus across here, I go across. Normally I'd be able to sloppily do this, and I undo. I don't know, maybe if I'm pushing my recording and then the HDMI here, might take it a second to react. Here we are. Okay, here we are. So normally you'd be able to come across like this with your brush tool and let it go, and it would identify the areas that you wanted to affect. But see, it doesn't identify the right areas anymore. The horizon isn't as important. So it's hard for me to use this refine tool. If those of you who know how to use it better, you're welcome to use that tool. But for now, I again go back to just zooming in and getting every last detail down in the corners here with a smaller palette, and you can brush it in down into the lines if you would like into detail, and that takes a little bit more time, okay? But that's me just touching up the sky. Sorry it takes me so long to explain, but I want to make sure that you guys understand the dynamics of what I do, I guess, so that you don't walk away with just the images and bad light painting. So let's take a look at what we got here. I feel like that little bit of a dark glow we can fix if we want to, but that would take more time. I'm going to move on to the next adjustment. So go back to the curves and come here and do the hand preset here and bring the light up just a hair on this part. Again, I'm going to fill this palette with black. So edit, fill, or you can do the short code, which is Command or Control Shift F5, and you can fill it with black. Once it's filled with black, you can again go back to your white, but it's at 100% opacity right now. So when I brush, everywhere I brush, it's going to be obviously that I brushed it. If I wasn't so dark, in a different situation, I would probably want to go down to about a 50% so that when I brush through the area, it wouldn't so obvious. So as I get into this area here, even zoom into Seth here. My brush light is to bring up the darkness first, and then I'll bring the brightness down at the end. But you can see they're still there. It's hard to see Seth in real person there from that far away in this small of a lens, but I think some of you got a little closer snap. Did anybody else get a closer one? I thought. Yeah. Was he in focus? Not quite. Okay, so let's finish off these lights. So that lighting right there, you see the opposite of what I did there. I'm gonna do one more layer. Oops, Control Z, of the curves again. This time I'm gonna go over to the lights, and I'm gonna bring them down. Sorry, you gotta click and drag when you're doing this, by the way, guys. If I can't get my light up there to work, I can just do it this way. And so, as you see, I've really darkened the image. Not quite enough there, maybe a little more, too much. And so, this is where my light painting really, I fix the majority of my horrible light painting, because I try to do my best, but again, we're always getting better. I'm going to edit fill with black, and then I'm going to brush it back in with the white. Right now, the softness of it is at 48%, and that's with the opacity. But then the flow, which is, how strong is it going to really indent its mark on the outside, it's much darker. Here we are. We're getting somewhere. I'm not going to mess with the light behind them. I feel like it keeps it a little more natural that way. And so seeing the hanger, seeing the shadow inside the background down here, I feel like that's kind of fun. And then also inside the hanger, whoop, my computer is kind of maxed out, I think, on the memory almost here on this video. Might have to get close to finishing my editing. It's a little bit hot still here with Seth, so we got to create a new layer from these ones. I actually do Alt Control Shift E for PC, or Command Alt Shift E for Mac, and that blends all of my layers together onto a new one, meaning it's just a new image that I'm working with. So that now I can go up to my filter palette and use the camera raw filter again and bring down those highlights one more time on Seth, and I think that might be just about right. So I don't want to bring down the highlights on the back areas that are already affected. So what's going to happen is I'm going to have to take a look at it. So it's just a little adjustment on Seth. It's not even very noticeable, but I have to put a mask layer on top of that. Nothing has happened, but now I'm going to do what I've done with the previous layers, which is edit, fill with the black, and then brush back in with the white. So now you can see, I'm going to go up to 100% here. It's not going to be very visibly noticeable, but any of the hot spots that I feel a little too hot, I can turn them down with this filter that I just added. Can you see the difference? It's not very much. It's pretty subtle. And so the final part is I'm going to touch up the sky. So I'll do that Alt Control Shift E or Command Alt Shift E, and I'm going to go ahead and do a little bit of the Nik collection filters, which you can also do naturally on your own. I just like how they do it for me, and I can do it kind of like almost camera raw, and in a way that the how do I explain it? The contrast is the way I like to see it. It's almost like an in-between heavy contrast, so it's got these deeper lines. People don't really like that, so you don't have to use this filter. Where we're at now already, I feel like we should be happy with our image. this is part of the Nick core issue, is you have to keep spinning your hand or spinning the mouse over it so it'll finish to get into this part. I literally come down to the soft landscape, which is my favorite. I do not care for the lens V&A. And then
What Nick tool are you in again?
this one is the Color Effects
Color Effects
Pro. And in the Pro Contrast, on that menu there, you can get much higher on the dynamic, and you can continue to go up to 100%, and you see the difference. The stars just explode off the screen, the noise explodes off the screen, and then it just changes the whole image. But again, I'm looking for trying to find a happy medium. This correction contrast is very helpful. This blasts it the other way, so you can choose to go that way and increase just a little more this way. So you can try and play with the balances again one more time. The color correction cast on this, I sometimes play with it just to see, what actually, it dulls out your color. So let's leave it back where we were to nothing here. The brilliance and warmth of the image is back to your white balance, and the saturation. So you can turn down that yellow, make it a little more blue. It looks a little too blue for me. Bring it up maybe down to the 20%. Yellow blue balance looks somewhat okay for me. Saturation maybe a little bit high, but we'll just bring it down halfway. It was at 20%. I'll bring it to 10%. So far, what we've done here are very minimal adjustments, and they're probably going to ruin our foreground in the corners that we already kind of fixed a little. So I do the same thing, is I only brush in what I like on this filter by adding a mask layer next to it. It is saving this image, so give it a second. Normally my computer is much faster, but I think with the casting to Apple TV and the recording this, we're maxing out the RAM right now. Okay. The difference is I feel like it went from greenish blue to a nice reddish yellow. The outside's got a little bit noisy down here at the bottom, and all our other lights came back. So I'm only going to take the sky on this filter, add that there, Control-Shift-E, brush, and we are going to go back to 100% on everything for a second and just get this over with, Get that sky looking poppy. I'm just going to brush everywhere. And there's our filter at this point. Let's take a look at the test. Okay. Final part that I do on this is you can really enhance the vibrance at this point on the sky and choose to really make it a little bit more colorful only in that area. Vibrance is this triangle here. Sorry, I clicked it and I went away. And then I crank it right up there. The whole image is starting to change colors, but again, mask layer, Command-Shift-E or Control-Shift F5. And we will get the Milky Way, the color that we want is the only area I want to give color to. And so that there, folks, is me touching up an image.
So
and
you're going to give us now written step-by-step?
Yeah.
Fast.
No worries. This is recording. So
Oh.
you will be able to get a YouTube link to this video. So you can go over this, everything that we talked about right here. So in the meanwhile, I'm going to stop the video for a second here. Give me a moment. Come down here. And file. New movie screen recording. I'm wondering what's going on here. Uh-oh. There's me again. Well, I should have been recording. Actually, I think I know what the problem is. It's probably on this screen here. And okay. Well, we're going to edit another one again. I'm going to hit save on this file here, and I'm just going to save it to your disk over here. Is that okay?
Yep.
And then you will be able to use that Photoshop file however you'd like. But again, let's take a quick view of the changes that we went over one last time. Okay, so we have here the image coming off of RAW, and then we touched up the sky. We brightened up the back, darkened up our light painting over there, mistakes. And on this one, we just went down on the brightness on the highlights. This one here, I created a new layer so that I could use the color effects filter, or it wouldn't allow me to use that filter over the top of all these curves that I did. And then the final touch up was giving the sky just a little more vibrance. And so a lot of what I've done is work on what I call the meat of the picture, which is the sky. A lot of my goal is to try not to have to do too much of this, but I find that I always end up playing with images for endless days and hours, and just because I like to finesse them.
So the distortion that's on the right hand side with the hanger, is that distorted? It looks so.
Right here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Would you
that's
crop that out?
you can if you'd like. That's where the angled lens kind of gets a little bit, and because of how high we are and how wide it is, starts to create that. Or you can, let me show you real quick. You can create a new layer from this here.
Does Lightroom have free transform? They added that in Photoshop. I mean?
Yeah,